Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something wild, the sudden, totally unexpected push to nationalize artificial intelligence in America. I mean, just a short time ago, the idea of the US government taking direct control of massive AI companies was basically a fringe theory on the progressive left. But fast forward to today, it has absolutely crashed into the mainstream. The landscape of technology and government is literally shifting right beneath our feet. And to understand where the future of AI is headed, we really need to understand how we got here. Now, what's really fascinating here is the massive contradiction we're seeing. It's like a giant puzzle. On one hand, you have the American political class, especially free market politicians, who historically oppose nationalization. They usually believe letting the free market do its thing is the best way to keep America's technological edge. Then, on the flip side, you have these profit-driven AI companies. These tech giants have historically guarded their billions in profits fiercely, yet suddenly we are seeing this bizarre alignment. Both the free market politicians and the tech billionaires are seemingly agreeing that the government should take a direct stake in AI. It is a total paradox. To figure out how we got here, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll unpack the AI nationalization paradox itself. Second, the government's changing stance. Third, why tech companies actually agree with this. And finally, returning to historical norms. Let's get right into it. All right, Section 1, the AI nationalization paradox. How this whole concept jumped from the fringe to the mainstream. This brilliantly illustrates the massive stakes involved right now. According to recent reports, OpenAI wasn't just casually entertaining government involvement, they were discussing literally handing the US government a 5% stake in the company, completely free of charge. We are talking about equity worth roughly $40 billion, with a B. They also apparently suggested that other big AI companies do the exact same thing. It is an absolutely unprecedented offer to voluntarily hand over multi-billion-dollar equity directly to the federal government. And politically, this is making for some very strange bedfellows. You have figures from completely opposite ends of the spectrum finding common ground. Recently, Donald Trump publicly suggested the U.S. could take direct stakes in major AI companies to create what he called a partnership with the American public. He even noted his plan wasn't actually that far off from a proposal by Bernie Sanders. Now, Sanders had previously pitched imposing a 50% tax on the stock of big AI companies to create a sovereign wealth fund. So while the exact methods differ, both sides of the political aisle are now seeing a massive strategic advantage in the government securing a direct financial foothold in the AI revolution. Which brings us to Section 2, the government's changing stance. So why intervene now? Well, it really boils down to three distinct motivations driving this pivot toward nationalizing AI. We're looking at a shifting ideology on free markets, an urgently escalating need for regulation, and honestly, the simple fact that stepping in is highly popular with voters. Let's break these down one by one. First up, take a look at this number, 20. The crucial point here is that we're already seeing a massive shift away from pure free market ideology. That number represents the amount of strategically significant companies where the government has already taken stakes under Republican leadership. We're talking about sectors like quantum computing and rare earths, industries heavily dominated by China, and the government has seen some real success here. For example, when they took a 10% stake in Intel last year, the stock boomed. That success has absolutely emboldened politicians to look at AI and think, hey, why not do exactly the same thing here? Second, things are moving at lightning speed on the regulatory front. Just look at this timeline. A few months ago, the administration was basically promising minimal tech regulation. Fast forward to recently, bam. The U.S. suddenly cuts off non-U.S. nationals from accessing Anthropic's newest models, Fable and Mythos. That was immediately followed by a hurried executive order creating a whole framework for U.S. agencies to get early access to new models. The government clearly feels it needs a much tighter grip on AI, and nationalization might just be the cleanest, most direct way to get it. Third, you just can't ignore the politics. Check out these numbers from a recent Pew poll. 40% of Americans believe AI will have a negative impact on society, compared to just 16% who think it'll be positive. The rest are basically shrugging or unsure. The main takeaway? People are really uneasy about this stuff. So from a political perspective, stepping in to nationalize these companies and somehow redistribute those massive profits back to the public is just incredibly good politics. To put a finer point on it, a whopping 63% of the public feels anxious that AI is advancing way too fast. When you have that much fear swirling around, promising to rein in a new technology and redistribute its wealth becomes a huge political win for upcoming elections. Politicians know that acting tough on AI could seriously bolster their approval ratings. Okay, let's flip the script. Section 3. Why tech companies agree to offer up their equity. Why would they give away the farm? Turns out, the tech industry has three core motives of their own. They range from genuine concerns about wealth distribution, to basic self-preservation against harsh regulations, to securing the ultimate financial safety net, a government bailout. First off, it's important to acknowledge that some industry insiders are legitimately worried about what happens when AI creates these absurd concentrations of wealth. Actually, way back in 2021, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman published a piece called Moore's Law for Everything. In it, he explicitly argued that the AI revolution would require a drastic change in policy to distribute this newly created wealth. So for some folks in the industry, offering equity to the government is a very practical step toward making sure those financial gains are actually shared. But let's be real, the second reason is pure self-preservation. Think of it like a dangerous chain reaction. Step 1. Right now, tech companies are borrowing and spending literally billions to fund data centers and AI infrastructure, all based on the promise of future profits. Step 2. As we just saw, public fear is spiking, which pressures politicians to crack down. Step 3. If a sudden, harsh regulatory hammer comes down from Washington, it could instantly pop that entire speculative bubble. By handing over equity now, they're playing a strategic game to keep regulators friendly and avoid completely ruining their current business models. And finally, giving the government a stake acts as the ultimate insurance policy. If this massive AI bubble does burst, having the US government as a major shareholder means the government is basically forced to step in and bail them out. I mean, the American political class is deeply committed to winning the global AI race against China. If a US AI giant is on the verge of collapse and the government owns a piece of it, they simply cannot afford to let it fail. It's a brilliant, calculated move to secure a national backstop. All right, let's zoom out for our final part. Section 4. Returning to historical norms, a wider context. It feels super weird today to talk about nationalizing tech, right? But historically speaking, leaving a technology of this unbelievable magnitude entirely in the private sector is actually a massive historical anomaly. Think about past world-altering technologies, like nuclear weapons or the space race. Those were almost entirely nurtured, funded, and dominated by the public sector. Artificial intelligence is arguably the very first technology of this civilization-altering scale to be completely driven by private companies. So when you view it through that historical lens, it really shouldn't shock us that keeping something this powerful, completely private, turned out to be fundamentally unstable. It was unstable for the companies burning through billions without a safety net, and it was absolutely unstable for a government trying to regulate a black box technology that could literally dictate the future of global power. The status quo just couldn't hold. Which brings us to a massive question to chew on long after this explainer wraps up. As we stare down a future shaped by algorithms that completely outpace human comprehension, is AI simply too powerful and too consequential to remain entirely in private hands? Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the AI nationalization paradox. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.